Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be my video with a pick for a villain I would want to see released for the Lightning Collection from every season. I asked about this video in my previous one where I kind of just went over a general character, mostly Ranger related, that I would want to see from each season for the Lightning Collection. And I asked about, should we do villains? And people said yes, I'd like to see that, especially since, if you know on my channel, I'm not that into villain figures, so it would be fun. Before I get started, I want to say this video is going to be primarily for like main villains, for the most part, like a villain that was either a main character or at least more significant. And then I'm going to do another one in the nearest future, depending on how long it takes, for Monsters of the Week specifically, because I thought it would be fun to separate that. Plus, I need a little more time to think on that, and I also need to actually remember the names of some of them, because I have some in mind, but I'm like, what was the name of the monster that had a faucet as an arm? So these videos are going to be separate. So this one is going to be just for main villains. So starting with MMPR, we have 3 seasons, but I'm going to do 2 picks because we're actually pretty well covered with MMPR. We have almost all the main villains in a way so far. So I'm going to have sort of 2.5 picks. And why 2.5? Well, because one of them, sort of for more MMPR season 1 and 2, is Finster. You know, I've always liked Finster just fine. I find in recent years I've actually grown to like him more because of the comics. He has a really disturbing backstory in the comics, and he also wound up having kind of a prominent role with both versions of Tommy as Tommy and Draken, which I thought was interesting. So if I had to pick one from Rita's sort of gaggle of henchmen, I would pick him. And the reason it's 2.5 is because my other half pick is Finster 5, which is the modified Finster from Draken's timeline. And that's sort of a comic pick as well, but I think that would be pretty cool to have. Now my other pick is for MMPR Season 3. I personally would like to see a Rito Revolto figure. I don't know why next time when I said that. Rito Revolto figure. I think that would be really cool. I've always enjoyed Rito. I think it would make for a good figure, so that would be my pick. Now for Zeo, I'm kind of going to use the same pick I had for my other video, just because we're pretty much completed with the team for Zeo. So for my other video, I had to pick a villain. So same pick here. A Mondo and Machine in a 2-pack I think would be kind of fun, sort of in a similar vein to the Rita and Zed 2-pack. Now for Turbo, I'm going to sort of set the precedent where 9 times out of 10 when I have a chance to pick a villain, as of right now, I'm going to pick the one that's US creation, so I'm going to go with Divatox. Since that was our own US villain, that's kind of one I would rather see first, even though, I mean, maybe like Elgar would be kind of cool, but I would always, or most cases, pick the US villain first. Now for In Space, I was all set to pick Ecliptor, but then that picture of Ecliptor leaked, so we know we're getting Ecliptor, so I'm going to go with Darkonda. Or a Dark Ecliptor figure would be cool too, but Darkonda was another one of the more prominent and more favorite villains. He's got a cool design, so I think that would be another one I would like to see. Now, for Lost Galaxy, I would like to see some form of Trakeena, again, diving into original villains, and I think that they could play it a couple different ways that I would like to see. I think a pre- and post-mutated 2-pack would be kind of cool. I'd also like to see an alternate head of her with her Bane mask from the Lightspeed Rescue team-up. That was a very iffy team-up, but I always thought that look was cool. I also wouldn't be mad if they did, like, a standalone Trakeena release that had the alternate head for Lightspeed Rescue. Like, please don't make that 2 releases. I don't think they would, but then again, they've done 2 Astronomer releases so far as of this recording. But a regular standalone Trakeena figure with the Bane mask as an alternate head. And then I would totally buy, even though it would sort of be triple dipping, I would buy a 3-pack or a 2-pack that had mutated Trakeena and Battleizer Leo with the broken helmet. That would be pretty cool. That's kind of dipping into Ranger stuff a little bit, but I was just thinking about ways to release it. Lightspeed Rescue, my pick is Diabolico. Despite my thoughts also being mixed on that season, Diabolico has always been one of my favorite villains. I'm a sucker for a villain that has a little bit of honor and character to them. Not to mention I think his design is sick and would make a really cool figure, even if he does have a bit of that Batman can't turn his neck syndrome going on. My pick for Time Force, pretty obvious, is Rancic. I mean, something like Frax down the line would be pretty cool too, but since he's an original villain and also one of my favorites, I think it would make for a cool character design. Maybe even include like an alternate Cured Head or something like that, but definitely Rancic for Time Force. Now for Wild Force, this is going to be starting a streak of almost exclusively picks of US villains, although this villain's sort of like mostly a US villain. That pick is Master Org. I say mostly a US villain because if you don't know, part of Master Org's costume was repurposed from a Die Ranger costume that we didn't use. So it wouldn't be a full 100% US creation, but it mostly is. And it's not like it's a character design I'm dying to have in figure form, but Master Org is one of my favorite villains and I think one of the most underrated Power Rangers villains. Like one of the ones where they actually had the power crystals to make a human villain irredeemable. Very interesting. I feel he just gets overshadowed by all the hype for the Time Force villains, so I would love a figure for him. Next up, continuing the original character train, is Lothor. I Love Lothor. Enough said. How amazing would an I Love Lothor version of the figure be? I don't know, I would totally buy that. But I always liked Lothor. I thought he was a good combo of kind of awesome and funny at the same time. Dino Thunder, Mesagog, easy pick. This was not only, I think, a great villain because he had a different motivation, but he was super creepy and intimidating in a very different way, and I think he actually had a really great design, so I would love a Mesagog figure. Definitely regular first, but I wouldn't necessarily be mad if they ever released that weird, phallic-looking final form that he had. Next up in the line of original villains is Emperor Grum from SPD. Another villain I really quite like. I just like his design and presence, and I think it would just make a really cool Lightning Collection release. And then you could have an alternate head with both of his horns cut off. Now they match. Now for Mystic Force, this one I could easily say Korag, but Korag was basically my pick for the Rangers in previous video, so I wanted to go a little bit different for this. So I'm gonna say maybe something like Necroli. Necroli I thought was a pretty cool villain. It would be nice to get some more female villains. Also, maybe Mutumbo, just because that would be funny. Now for Overdrive is one where I'm going to break my rule. Now I would not be mad at all to see a Flurious figure because he is an original creation, but if I were to pick, if I somehow had the choice, I would say I would actually want Moltor first, only because, I mean, not only do I like his design, but Rion from Bokenger was one of my favorite villains, especially in Bokenger itself, so I would kind of just want that first to represent that personally, even though I'm mostly, you know, Team US villains first. Jungle Fury was a very easy pick, so were a Jared and Camille 2-pack. I want those figures so bad that honestly, I still stand by that the Jungle Fury basic figures, including those, are some of the best Power Rangers figures we've gotten. But I think we got a teaser for Figuarts Rio and Melee that just never happened. So I feel like we've just been teased forever, and figures of these two would be amazing. Their power-up forms would be great too. Now for RPM, I would like to see Tenaya 7, because as of this recording, we just started to dip into teasing the idea of doing more human-exclusive figures. I mean, Astronema is a villain, but obviously she's primarily a human, and then they showed off that Andros figure that's just his human form, so I think Tenaya 7 could be one they would do. It's an original villain, it was an important character to the story, I'd like it. Now, for Samurai, I feel like most people would go in the Decker direction. I think a human Decker would be kind of cool, but that might be slippery territory now. But I'm going to swerve a little bit and pick Master Xandrid. I think he's got a cool design and could make a really cool Lightning figure. For Megaforce, I'm going to pick Vrak. Easily one of the better villains in both of those seasons, and he's got several forms to choose from. I think the final form might be the coolest, just to sort of, you know, channel Braejira a bit there as well, but that would be my pick for that. For Super Megaforce, honestly, I wasn't sure, and now I can't remember his name, but that cyborgy villain with the blank face. I'm only picking him because he had a cooler character in Gokaiger. I mean, Varric would kind of complete the Vrak-Varric family, but I don't know, I don't really have a clear desire for a pick in this series. Nothing about like hating Super Megaforce, it's just none of the villains really stood out to me enough. There were some cool designs, but nobody that I could think of like, yeah, that would be neat. For Dino Charge, I would like a 2-pack. I would like a Heckle Snide 2-pack. I think that would be perfect. Human figure for Heckle would be really cool to have. Same thing for Snide, it would make the perfect 2-pack. And you would also be getting your sort of Neo Zeltrax gear from the Triple Dino team up in Japan too at the same time. And I think that would just be a fun and unique 2-pack. And if we ever get a Dark Ranger, it will be just kind of a cool display to have those three together. Then for Ninja Steel, this is another one kind of like Super Megaforce where, like, I thought of a pick, but nothing really that excites me, but I guess Madame Odious, because she was really the only villain. Like, the only villain that was memorable, the only really real villain that did anything. So that's who I would pick. Then we have Beast Morphers, and again, I could easily pick Roxy here, but that was also basically my pick for my previous video. So I'm actually going to go a little different for this one. I'm going to say Goldar Maximus, who was a villain basically just for the Triple Dino team up, but I pick him because even though what we did with his character was pretty much weak sauce for the storyline, he's got a really cool design, and again, if we were to somehow get this and that 2-pack with Snide I talked about, you get both the Neo Gryphosaur and Zeltrax figures from the Triple Dino team up from Japan at the same time, so that's what I would pick for Beast Morphers. Now for Dino Charge, another one, Void Knight would be an instant pick, especially as of this recording. We have so few villains in the series at this point, but I already basically picked Void Knight for my other video. So for this one, I'm going to say, we haven't gotten him yet, but I'm going to presume to get him, and that we're going to get him. I can't remember his name in Ryu Soldier, but the White Castle-y looking villain, I always liked his design, and I would not mind a figure from him at all. Hyperforce, I think Thrax would be a good pick. because for obvious reasons, not to mention we would get a Thrax figure. Also, comics-wise, I was trying to think. I mean, like the Imperials, I guess, would be kind of cool, since it's technically a villain. Kia, with her mask off and wearing the emissary's cape, would also be neat. But what I would actually go for is Dane. Dane was the villain from the Necessary Evil arc, who was a red version of Doggy Kruger. I think that will be pretty easy to do, pretty cool. And if they sort of went with the idea that Star Wars goes for, where they release figures that are from a cartoon in sort of a live action aspect, it would be really easy to just repaint Doggy Kruger's existing head. But that is it for my picks. As always, let me know in the comments what your villain picks are. Like I said, next up will be my picks for Monsters of the Week. But until next time, before I comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can catch my videos, Dawson Rider, signing out.